All right, welcome to Life Extension Live. I'm Dr. Mike, and that is
Dr. Crystal.
Dr. Crystal. Today, we're going to talk about multiple sclerosis.
Yes, we
MS.
are.
Yeah, it's I think there's March 9th through the 15th is Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week. That was hard to say.
Yeah, so we missed it, but it's never too late to talk about MS.
It's very common. People watching, either someone may have it, or you have a friend or a family member that has it. It is very, very common. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about what is MS. We're going to explain some of the myths surrounding it, and then get into, common treatments and some nutrient add-ins.
Yes.
All right. So let's get right into this, Dr. Crystal. Let's hear your simple, easy definition of what's going on with MS.
Yeah, it's a chronic autoimmune condition of the central nervous system where the body is attacking really the myelin sheath, that insulating covering of the nerve. And
so we have a picture of it.
We do.
Let's throw that up, Robson.
And it shows a healthy nerve.
You can see so that myelin sheath, a good way to think of it, think of like an electrical cord. Why do they have the rubber around the electrical cord?
It helps with conduction, right?
Yeah, if you didn't have that, you would lose conduction in the air and it just wouldn't work as good. Yeah. Same thing with your nerves.
Yeah, and it also, because they're kind of separated, so it also helps with speed, is that?
Yeah, it's like, not just,
helps that.
It's speed, it's keeping that signal going straight where it needs to go, it doesn't dissipate, it's all that kind of stuff. And so you can see, if that's broken down, the nerves just can't talk to each other as well. The brain signal gets dampened, the signal out to the muscles get dampened, and that's where you see a lot of our symptoms.
Yeah, common symptoms: fatigue, weakness, stumbling, some skin sensations. We'll go into a more detailed look at the symptoms, but those are some of the
those are like the first big signs: eye stuff, stumbling, the fatigue. That's that sounds very first common stuff that people deal with. Let's talk a little bit about how we classify MS, because I think it's confusing to some people.
It can be, because there are many, I would say 4 main types. Well, you have a pre-type and then 3 other main types, but a lot of medical associations are kind of grouping all 4. So first you have a clinically isolated syndrome, and we do have a table kind of showing these different types. Okay. This is kind of what some consider pre-MS, meaning your symptom doesn't meet the exact definition or criteria for MS. So that's your clinically isolated syndrome.
63% of those, right, will progress.
Correct.
To actually fitting the criteria.
Yes, which means they're going to have another attack.
Right, okay.
And then you have relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis, and this is where you have these phases of a relapse, or basically MS
kind of off-on stuff.
Attack. Yeah, where the immune system is attacking, and then you have a period of relapse where everything kind of calms down.
That's 85% of cases.
85% of cases fall in that category, and then you have another broad category known as progressive. And progressive can be secondary or primary. Secondary progressive is when the relapsing remitting, you're no longer in these periods of kind of remitting, basically. You are now going into a progressive state. So that would be the secondary progressive. And then the primary progressive, it's really sad. These people kind of start in a progressive. Unfortunately, when MS, when they're first diagnosed, they are diagnosed. There's no
they're already there.
Remission period.
Yeah, and they're staying there. And that's about 15% of your cases, and that's the worst case scenario.
Right. Most people fall in that relapsing remitting. Yeah. So that's the 85%.
So when you think of, again, going back to that image of the nerve, right? And you have that myelin sheath, and we talked about how you're losing speed, conduction, all that kind of stuff, time. When we go back over these symptoms again, it makes sense that these are the symptoms, right? So we broke up. If you just go on Google Land and look at MS symptoms, you're just going to get these. I mean, it's crazy. It's what's better is to categorize. So hopefully we've done that here, and that's going to be helpful. There's a nerve category of symptoms. There's a muscle category of symptoms. There's cognition and mood category, and then sexual dysfunction categories.
Yeah, it all makes sense, Dr. Mike, because the central nervous system is controlling your entire body, right?
Exactly.
Movement, thinking, cognition, so forth and so on.
Yeah, and there are certain criteria that your doctors, neurologists look for to get the MS. You don't have to have all the symptoms there. I don't remember how many in each category, but they have ways of figuring that actual diagnosis out.
It's usually based on the symptoms along with MRI. Yeah. They can see those lesions. Yeah. I mean, you know that you're a radiologist. I've seen them before.
Yes. Yep,
and so you can see those lesions, and then you can kind of tell if someone had a flare up in the past.
Yeah.
And so some people initially they'll get their diagnosis as relapsing remitting. Like they're not that first clinically isolated syndrome. The doctor realizes, hey, maybe something happened.
Something actually already happened. We just didn't catch it, or something like that. And those lesions, where in the brain the issue is occurring, when you look at MRIs, they can change based on the flare up.
Right.
So it's not always the same symptom.
Right.
Although there's most people probably have some common set of symptoms, but there could be new ones.
Very true. Yes, and then sometimes, especially when you're in a progressive state, if your symptom was, let's say, weakness in your extremities, you may not get that back.
Yeah, that's what's sad.
So the relapsing remitting, sometimes those symptoms that you're experienced during that flare up improve.
Yeah. But there's that point where it may not, and unfortunately,
right.
Yeah. So we have some myths for you.
Okay. Did I get into the myths?
Not really. No, I think we're okay. Okay, let's take a look at myth number 1, and this is actually very interesting. This myth, right?
Yes.
MS is contagious. What do you think?
Well, what do you think? It's not contagious, although there is a hereditary component. But I think why people are asking this is because of the viral connection.
Yeah, that's why there is one of the theories of why this happens. And viruses have been kind of targeted as a potential trigger or cause for a lot of autoimmune things, right? Some of these viruses that are out there, especially the viruses, they change so fast, so much, and they get in your system. And there's maybe some proteins on the surface of these viruses. The one we're talking about here is Epstein-Barr, right? Epstein-Barr virus, herpes, all that kind of stuff, mononucleosis. There might be some proteins that are on that surface that your body it looks a little. It gets confused because it has antibodies to that, and then you have one on a normal cell that's kind of similar.
Yeah.
And your body goes and attacks it.
Yes, and we know there's a strong connection between Epstein-Barr because we have this stat. Epstein-Barr is present in about 95%
of
adults.
Yeah.
And so, but they may not always get MS as well. So it's hard, still a theory.
It's a theory. It's hard to know, but right now that is a myth. It's not. We're going to say it's not contagious. Okay, going on. Here's another one. MS is a disease of young white women.
Definitely a myth.
Definitely a myth.
But some truth in there that it is more prevalent in women, but that's for autoimmune disease in general.
Yeah.
Is you find more women.
And that is a true thing. That is a true statement.
So that is true. Yeah. And then you're also seeing it more in Black women
Black
compared
women
to white.
compared to white women, yeah. A study of 3,000, I started that number off weird, didn't I? 3,863 people with MS found that among white individuals with MS, 76.3 were female, and among black individuals, 81% were female. So very interesting there. All right, here's another one for you. People with MS end up in wheelchairs.
It's not guaranteed.
No, it's not. It's a manageable disease.
It is very manageable. And I remember back in the day thinking because I have family members with MS, and I personally have felt devastated for my family member. And then you see them at the family reunion,
Yeah.
and they're doing fine.
Yeah,
and
they're
you
doing-
say, okay,
Yeah.
so it is manageable. You really have to catch it right away.
Treatment is key, I
Yes.
believe conventionally. I think integrative treatment is key for
Yes.
MS. And we're going to get into some of that. Here's another one. Physical activity worsens MS. This is an interesting one because I will tell you in the long past, back when I was in medical school, there were a lot of neurologists that believed you couldn't get too active.
Well, not anymore.
Not
Dr.
anymore.
Mike. Now you're seeing exercise, not overdoing it, but exercise is part of kind of the treatment plan. It's as physically active as you can be.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta just think that has to be correct, given the fact that you're dealing with nerves and muscles and movement, and so
It needs stimulation.
Keep that memory, that muscle memory going and movement for
Yes.
sure. Yeah, I think this is the last one. Either you have relapsing remitting MS or primary progressive, meaning you don't. I guess the people are thinking they're totally two different things here.
Yeah, you're kind of, generally speaking, you kind of do see the relapse and remitting move into or digress into progressive, but you can see them happening simultaneously.
We're going to jump into some theories now. What's causing MS? Again, this is all theories. At this point, no one really knows exactly what's going on. Most likely, as we're discovering more and more, Dr. Crystal, multifactorial. I think we just need to start appreciating that in medicine more, that there's not always this one symptom and one thing causing that,
Yes.
It's not that clean, right?
Not at all.
So the first one we already kind of talked about, Epstein-Barr, right? There was a meta-analysis of 18 studies. That's what we like, big studies, pulling all that data together. And they identified that mononucleosis, was associated with more than twice the risk of MS compared with no history of mononucleosis.
This other study, and we don't have a lot of details here, but this study was in military individuals, 801 MS cases, and just one person had a negative Epstein-Barr test.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, when you look at groups of people,
It's hard to deny there's a role here. Now, this is not cause-effect.
theories.
Associations, theories at best, but it is very interesting. And more research is being done, right?
Yes.
Then you have, this one I find really interesting, because this is brand new. This is not taught when I was in school. Gut-brain axis hypothesis. You want to explain that?
It makes sense to me. I'll tell you that we do know there's a connection between the gut and the brain. We talk about it for mood, Dr. Mike. We talk about that connection for appetite control.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And because of that, we also know that leaky gut or intestinal permeability can cause a reactive immune system. And sometimes that's just that's that one thing that kind of triggers.
It triggers it, activates.
Yes, triggers and activates the immune system, and then it will start attacking self.
Yeah, because with leaky gut, things that aren't supposed to get in are getting in. And that's just immune stimulating. And the more you're stimulating immune, the more that we see autoimmune issues arise.
Yeah. So, when you think about that, you want to also think about gut health, prebiotics, probiotics, fiber.
Makes sense. A few more myths. How is well, this isn't really a myth, is it?
Oh, no.
I think that's in the wrong place. Here's the myth: women with MS shouldn't have children.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no.
They can't. But, women, one thing you do see, and your doctor will work with you with this, is some of the aggressive medications or therapies to kind of get you in remission. They won't want to do, they
Right.
won't give you those medications if you're pregnant.
Yeah, but you can be, again, talk to your doctor about it. There's a lot of women who are. You'll be on some form of maintenance therapy. Things are going to, but being pregnant itself doesn't seem to be a trigger. Although I think I saw something after delivery. About 3 months, I can't remember the time frame, but there's a time frame after delivery where they do see some activation of the MS.
I can totally understand. I mean,
Yeah.
women, let me tell you, after you have a baby, your whole system is just trying to figure out
What just happened?
what just happened. I need to adjust. And you see autoimmune issues where you start losing your hair. The immune system's attacking your hair follicles. So it's
Yeah.
that makes sense
Yeah,
to me.
I think so. And then here's another one: myth, or fact.
Or fact.
Not everyone needs to take disease-modifying therapy.
That is
We should
definitely
have
a
the
myth.
sounds.
No, you want to be treated immediately.
Yeah, for
it's so
sure.
important, and I'm a fan of going in strong from the
Yeah.
beginning.
And this feeds into that myth. There's no cure, so nothing can be done. Although there isn't. Well, first of all, we don't even really know what's causing it, right? And all we're doing is we understand what's happening, which is known as the pathology, and we're designing drugs and nutrient add-ins that are helping with that part of it.
Yeah.
So although we can't say there's a cure, it is manageable. That's the key take home.
Yes.
100% true there. Okay, so so if somebody is with MS, how are they going to be like? Let's run through so people can understand a little bit what their conventional doctors are kind of like thinking, and how they're going to go through this, right? Like for instance, we had already mentioned. Disease-modifying therapies, right? So there's 3 categories your doctor's going to follow: disease-modifying therapies, relapse management therapies, and then just overall symptomatic treatments.
Yes.
Okay.
So disease-modifying therapies, this is slowing the disease progression, trying to slow things down so that you don't get worse, as well as reducing the frequency and the severity of the relapse.
Right. These are often these monoclonal antibody therapies, which are usually intravenous infusions. There's interferons, which really dampen, your immune and inflammatory component. Those are usually injectable. So lots of different choices there that your doctor can use. Now, relapse management therapies, number one, you got steroids.
You
Boom.
have to do it.
Hard initially.
Right, because you are trying to kind of reel that immune system in and get that inflammation under control.
And then symptomatic treatments. This is really just going to be, we've already mentioned some of these. Fiber, there it is. I see
for
that's
bowel
in there.
dysfunction.
Bowel
It's managing
dysfunction.
the symptoms.
And there's even other, there's stuff here, I think, on the integrative side we could even add. There are, add-ins that are good for cell energy production, add-ins that are good for protecting nerve cells overall. There's certain fats that come to mind. Like there's a lot there you can do to protect that sheath as best you can, to protect that nerve, and that will help to dampen some symptoms.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into diet. Tell us about what you think with MS and diet.
Well, I've taken deep dives into MS and diet in the past and have done some research on it. And the anti-inflammatory diet is my personal favorite. So I know, but we had a guest on liveforeverish.com,
that's right.
liveforeverish.com, the Live Foreverish podcast.
Well, that is the website.
Yes.
Liveforeverish.com.
Dr. Terry Walls, she is a pioneer in the field of MS research, and I can remember meeting her for the first time, and she was on our show. And she had a lot to say about diet.
Yeah.
So we have a clip.
Yeah, let's play that clip, Robson.
You know, I had been a low-fat vegetarian, plenty of beans and rice, whole grains, and that made me worse, probably because I have unrecognized gluten sensitivity, dairy sensitivity, and egg sensitivity. So when I got those things out of my diet, and then I focused on more greens, more non-starchy vegetables. I added liver, and that really was when the magic happened. For 4 years, I had this intense craving for greens, all sorts of variety of greens. And if my green intake went down, I could tell cognitively that things were not as good. So, I would carry cabbage with me for all of my flights, and I'm eating cabbage on the plane. I'm carrying kale with me because I could tell cognitively within 24 hours if I was not getting those nutrients.
Love it.
I love what she said about the green leafy vegetables.
Yeah.
It's so funny to hear her talk about being on the plane, and she had her veggies with her everywhere. And she also, later on the show, kind of talked about, we can debate Mediterranean diet, paleo diet, but I think key takeaways for me is, one, identifying if you have any sensitivities or allergies.
Oh, good point.
And you need to get those out.
Because you don't want to do, the last thing you want to do is stimulate too much that immune system.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she talked about, her eating lots of veggies. I like that she added in liver.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Liver is a powerhouse food.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, they don't eat it, but
mineral dense, not heavy in calories.
yes. So, you can go to liveforeverish.com to hear the entire episode. It was an amazing talk.
Yeah. So.
And she's publishing a lot of research, and I think that was the other piece. Is she tried a lot of this on herself because she has MS, but now she's conducting clinical trials. She has an autoimmune lifestyle center, and people are just having a great response to the program.
Fantastic. Let's get into nutrient add-ins now. These are things that you want to, you're eating that better diet, but there are some things that you can add in at certain doses that can give you a little bit more of an oomph, right? The first one, of course, vitamin D. You got, how many times have we said this, Dr. Crystal? Vitamin D is it's like the orchestra, or what the conductor of the orchestra. I can't say it. Of your immune system.
That's okay.
Say it for me.
Orchestra.
Orchestra. I can't do it.
That's okay.
I
all know what we're trying to say.
Okra in my mind.
But vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's a hormone, and it controls the entire immune system.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I would suggest work with your doctor. You want to know your vitamin D blood level. And with this kind of issue, you're going to want that blood level definitely on the higher side. Even if you go with conventional numbers, get it on the higher side. I personally think it should be a lot higher than that. Yeah. That's just me. But definitely know what that blood level is.
Yes, and then one thing to note, because we just this month, a research paper came out with more of an intervention with vitamin D, because most of the research up to this point, it's association. Like, we see people who live in northern latitudes have increased risk and prevalence of MS. But there was an intervention study in individuals who kind of had that pre-MS, the clinically isolated syndrome, and they were given mega doses.
A lot, yes.
100,000 IUs.
But I don't mind that. I don't mind that.
D3 every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And this was, compared to placebo. And then the participants who received that vitamin D, less of those participants moved on to develop the
and
MS.
don't be scared by that number. This is a specific group of people having specific set of symptoms. And so that kind of dosing of vitamin D, that's not scary. It's not crazy.
Yeah.
It's just getting their blood levels up really fast and letting vitamin D do what it does for the immune system. CoQ10.
Love it.
I kind of mentioned this up front. I forgot it was in here. Energy. CoQ10 is essential nutrient for energy. Your cells have to be able to make energy so they can function. So you rev up your CoQ10 blood levels. You get that CoQ10 in those cells to make ATP.
Yeah, and that can help with fatigue, the muscle weakness, and just lowering oxidative stress as well.
Yeah, and here, remember I mentioned at the get-go, a lot of this should be integrative, right? You're going to be on conventional, you're going to integrate. Here was CoQ10 and given to people who were on interferon beta-1 alpha. It's just a powerful compound to manage inflammation and stuff. That's all it is. And they added CoQ10. And when they did that was for 3 months. Less oxidative stress, less disability, less fatigue, depression, pain, and improvement in inflammatory factors compared to those that only got the interferon.
Yeah.
That's integrative medicine. That's the power.
Don't we love it, Dr.
Yeah.
Mike? We say this all the time. We're not anti-medication.
We're not anti-anything. We are pro whatever works best for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm going to just sort of quick.
Yeah.
How often do Dr. Krista and I talk about most of the chronic issues we deal with as we get older, whether it's autoimmune issues, whether it's cardiovascular, brain, the reasons for these things happening are multifactorial. Heart attacks aren't just cholesterol. It's a whole list of other things that can go on. And so when you think about integrative medicine, where you're integrating some conventional stuff with some good nutrient add-ins, your approach becomes multifactorial.
Yes. More robust.
And it just makes more sense to me.
And speaking of that, vitamin A. Now, this was given, as far as I'm aware, now I didn't look at the detail, but I think they were just provided the vitamin A. A trial included 101 people. These individuals had relapsing remitting MS, 12 months of 25,000 IUs of vitamin A in the form of retinol palmitate, which is a fat-soluble form of vitamin A. So that was 12 months, and then for another 6 months, they were provided 10,000 IUs, and this was associated with improvements in functionality compared with placebo.
Yeah, just so I think some people might get confused. Vitamin A generally is considered a fat-soluble vitamin.
Yes.
But this form, this palmate form, it is more fat-soluble, and it really has an affinity for getting into the central nervous system, for cells, and that's why they chose that form. And then melatonin. I didn't know we were going to sing it. I thought we were just going to scream it.
Well, okay.
Melatonin. It makes sense. Melatonin is a powerful neuroactive antioxidant compound. It's not just sleep.
Yes.
Right? So here was a study published just January of this year. That's awesome. 12 weeks of 3 milligrams of melatonin. In this case, they gave it about 30 minutes for a bedtime. That's good. And 3 milligrams, it's good. Good dose.
That's a good starting dose.
Yeah. And there was improved knee muscle strength, manual dexterity, postural balance got better, mood and cognition also got better, and these were people who had MS.
Amazing.
Melatonin.
Yeah. So there is hope.
Oh, for
I think
sure.
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and again, that integrative approach, that is where I think most of the hope falls in making MS a manageable disease, like so many others that we've got into that category. Yeah.
Yes, but it takes, you want to do it. You have to kind of dig into these solutions. Go back and listen to that podcast with
You would
Dr.
love
Terry
it.
Wall.
Listen, it's
She
awesome.
was in a zero gravity wheelchair.
Yeah.
She could not
She was
walk.
at the end. Yeah.
She was at the end.
And she's not.
And
she's far from the end
according
now.
to science, she should be, totally disabled. And she is riding bikes,
It's wonderful.
going
Check
around
that
lecturing.
out. So that's at liveforeverish.com. That's our podcast, plug. But if you want to learn more about MS, we're going to send you to Life Extension.
lifeextension.com/MS, and that is our
Huge protocol.
multiple sclerosis protocol.
Tons of stuff.
And it outlines everything
From conventional, nutrient, everything. Pathology.
Yeah, it just really helps you to understand what's
deep.
going on.
Go check that out, lifeextension.com/MS. When you're there, you can use the discount code,
LE Live.
and you'll get 10% off $50 or more plus free shipping and handling. Dr. Crystal, fabulous though. This is great.
Yes.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time, wherever you watch us. We're live across many channels. Ring bells, thumbs up, like, click interested, all of that. Please engage with these, share them, give us some reviews. Maybe you got some topics you'd like for us to cover. Put those in the comments. Don't forget, it's live every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm Dr. Mike. That's
Dr. Crystal.
We'll see you next time.